Just in time as always. Settle in, tuck that blanket up just so, and listen closely. Tonight's story is a slightly spooky one, but don't worry, I'll stay with you till the end. Tonight's tale is called The Clockmaker's Secret. The village of Pendlebury lay cradled in mist each dawn, its cobblestone streets gleaming wet beneath the low-slung roofs of timber-framed cottages. At the heart of the village stood the tall, octagonal clock tower, dim silver stone rising 5 stories into the sky, crowned by a great copper dome whose verdigris patina glowed faintly under moonlight. Every quarter hour, the tower's 4 clock faces chimed in unison, their deep gongs echoing through narrow lanes and over fields of tall grass. But in Pendlebury, time had its own curious quirks. More than once, the clock's hands had spun backward, where the hour hand paused at 13 before correcting itself. Villagers whispered that you could lose 15 minutes in the market square, only to find them returned at the tailor's door. Apprentices to the blacksmith sometimes arrived at noon, just as the bell tolled 11. Farmers swore their lunch pails vanished between 15 and 30-minute chunks of daylight. For centuries, no one could explain these missing minutes, though everyone learned to adjust their wristwatches by adding a quarter hour, as if time in Pendlebury obeyed its own rulebook. It was into this curious village that Amelia Birch arrived on a blustery October morning, her traveling satchel bulging with odds and ends, her mind brimming with hope. She had come to apprentice under Master Clockmaker Hadley, whose reputation for precision matched Pendlebury's reputation for peculiarity. The morning air smelled of damp wood and grease oil, carried on gusts that tugged at Amelia's long coat. She stepped lively along Market Lane, passing a row of shuttered stalls where vendors hawked dried herbs and brass cogs for half a crown. At the foot of the clock tower, she paused as the giant hands silently marked 10 minutes till 9, but no church bell rang. Moments later, the tower erupted in 12 resonant tolls, startling a flock of sparrows into flight. Amelia's heart fluttered. She'd read of Pendlebury's oddities, but hearing 12 rings instead of 9 felt like waking inside a dream. The bell's echo settled, and Amelia hurried toward Hadley's workshop, tucked behind the tower's western face. A carved wooden sign swung overhead. Hadley and Company, timepieces and repair. The only true beat in Pendlebury. She lifted the knocker, cast in the shape of a ticking pocket watch, and tapped twice. The heavy oak door creaked open before she could release her hand. Inside, the air was warm, scented of brass filings and rosewood polish. Walls soared high. Lined with shelves were hundreds of clocks. Grandfather clocks, mantel clocks, hourglasses sat silent in neat rows. A man emerged from a side room, wiping his hands on a lint-torn rag. His jacket bore the faint smear of clock oil. His glasses balanced precariously on the bridge of his nose. Gray hair curled about his ears. He smiled upon seeing Amelia. "You must be Miss Birch. Welcome. I'm Hadley." His voice was gentle but firm, like a pendulum's nod. He shook her hand. "Right on time, I see." Amelia smiled back, feeling both thrilled and timid. "Thank you, Master Hadley." "Aye." He gestured to a stool set before a massive workbench. "Sit. Let me show you our first task." Amelia perched on the stool. Across from her, Hadley lifted a pocket watch from a velvet-lined box. Its silver case bore intricate filigree. Its glass face was cracked. "This belonged to the village magistrate," he explained. "He claims it lapses by 10 minutes every day, though I tested it and found it gains 5 at dawn, loses 3 by noon, then vanishes entirely for half an hour each afternoon." Amelia studied the watch. The cracked glass distorted the minute hand. Through the fracture, the mechanism glinted like hidden stars. "I've never seen anything like it," she murmured. Hadley nodded gravely. "Pendlebury's oddities, unfortunately, creep inside the gears. We'll begin by disassembling it, an exercise in patience. I want you to remove the face, set aside, then extract the second pinion." He passed her a jeweler's screwdriver. "Careful with the springs. A stray click, and we both lose an hour's work." Amelia set to work. As she eased the case open, her knuckles tingled. The warm metal felt strangely alive. She lifted the face, a paper-thin dial marked with glowing runes instead of numerals. Just as her fingertip brushed one rune shaped like an hourglass, the workshop door banged open. A wind gust rushed in, sending chimes tinkling and loose sketches fluttering. Hadley's apprentice, Julian Trent, dashed in, cheeks flushed. "Master, you must see the tower clock." He pointed to the tall window. It stopped. Hadley stood, brow furrowing. Outside, the giant hands had frozen at the stroke of 12. Pendlebury's shutters rattled as another gale swept the street. The village clock had never paused before, save when some unknown force intervened. Hadley closed his eyes, breathing deeply. "Again," he said softly. "It's happened again." Julian's lips quivered. They're saying time is broken. Amelia rose, the pocket watch still open in her hands, the runes faintly gleaming beneath her scrutiny. "Master," she said quietly, "the watch's runes, they match the ones on the tower's face." Hadley's eyes widened. "The old glyphs, I thought those were decorative." He pressed a hand to his forehead. "No, it can't be coincidence." Amelia slipped off her stool and stepped toward the window. The hands on the tower face had frozen in place, casting long shadows over the village square. Every clock she glimpsed in shop windows seemed to mirror the same time. Time itself trapped in a single beat. A hush fell over the workshop, broken only by the hiss of the wind and the distant toll of the bell that no longer moved. Julian swallowed, voice small. "What do we do?" Hadley turned to Amelia, eyes steady. "We fix it." He nodded toward the open pocket watch. "Those runes, extract them, study them. They may hold the key to the clocktower's secret." Amelia's heart throbbed with a mixture of dread and exhilaration. She closed the watch face gently and set it on the bench. "Yes, master." She met Hadley's gaze and felt a spark of destiny. Here, in Pendlebury, where minutes vanished and returned, she would learn what bound time itself. They set to work by lamplight, chipping away at the intricate runes, each flicker of oil lamp revealing new curves and angles. Outside, the wind beat against the shutters. In Pendlebury, no one dared move. Every villager held breath, waiting for the return of the clock's heartbeat. And in the workshop, Amelia Birch, novice apprentice, prepared to unlock the mysteries of time, one carefully extracted rune at a time. Dawn crept into the workshop the next morning in wary tendrils of pale light. Amelia Birch awoke at her small cot behind the workbench with a start, the sensation of sleep pressed too tightly around her mind. She sat up, rubbing her eyes, and reached for the pocket watch she'd worked on the night before, now safe in its restored case. She lifted it and found the minute hand stubbornly fixed at 8:17, despite the sun peeking pale through the shutters. Frowning, she checked the workshop clock on the wall, 8:45. 15 minutes had vanished. Her pulse quickened. She glanced at the tower's face beyond the window. Its hand still hung defiantly at 12 o'clock. Amelia rose and hurried to Hadley's bench. He bent over disassembled gears, Julian Trent repairing a cuckoo mechanism. Amelia tapped the Persian blue lamp. "Master," she said softly. Hadley looked up, shadows beneath his eyes. "Good morning, Amelia. How did you sleep?" Amelia held up her watch. 15 minutes behind, and the tower still hasn't struck again. Hadley sighed, pushing back his spectacles. Time slips grow more aggressive. Last night's freeze lasted nearly 2 hours, from what I saw in my shop log. Amelia nodded, heart racing. "I felt it. There was a moment, just before the door swung wide, but I swear the tick of my own heart stilled." Julian leaned in, curiosity bright in his young face. "What happened?" Amelia closed her eyes briefly, gathering the strange memory. "I was finishing the watch's runes when I heard the door crash. In that instant, I felt everything stop, not just the clocks, but the wind, the lamp's flame, even my breathing. And then, seconds later, the door slammed and the wind roared back." Hadley's expression sharpened, a temporal stutter. "I've read of something like this. Moments when time fractures, offering a glimpse behind the curtain. Few have survived it without change." "Change?" Julian asked. Hadley stroked his beard. "Time alters those who witness it too intimately. Memories shift, minutes bury themselves, and people vanish. A chill ruffled Amelia's spine. She thought of the villagers' stories, of missing days spent wandering fields, of wakes attended for friends who reappear without recollection. "We must stop it," she said. Hadley nodded gloomily. "We must. I want you to examine the runes we extracted yesterday. Compare them to the inscriptions on the clock tower's mechanism. There may be a pattern." Amelia returned to the bench. She gathered the tiny brass runes, 24 in all, each etched with a symbol: an hourglass, a spiral, a teardrop, a wave. She laid them out on a felt mat in the shape of a sundial, matching the poem sequence from a bridge. Teardrop, willow, lantern, river, moon, then onward into symbols she did not yet understand. Her fingers traced each rune as Hadley and Julian watched. "Look," she said, pointing to a spiral rune nestled between an hourglass and a wave. "This spiral resembles the cog patterns on the clock tower's inner gear. See how its teeth flow in circles." Julian peered closer. "I never noticed that." Amelia picked up her own wristwatch, a simple timepiece she kept for habit, and set it beside the runes. "My watch slowed by 15 minutes. That's precisely the count of these runes. Perhaps each rune corresponds to one missing minute. 24 in all." Hadley's eyes brightened. "Follow that thought. If each rune embodies a missing minute, then the clock tower's mechanism must house the full set, its central arbor holding the master rune that binds them all. Then we should retrieve the clock tower gear with the spiral pattern," Amelia said, excitement lacing her voice. Hadley nodded. "Tonight, come midnight, I will unlock the tower for you." The day trudged onward in a blur. Amelia delivered letters with hands still tingling from the rune's subtle warmth. At Madame Finlow's cottage, she noticed the seamstress pause mid-stitch, as if pinned in place by silent force. A moment later, Madame Finlow blinked, stitching resumed, and she frowned. "Do the bells not ring tonight?" she asked. Amelia's heart sank. "They haven't rung since the clock froze at 12. "Unnerving," Madame Finlow murmured. "I thought the hour was upon me when I heard them last." Clara's pulse drummed in her ears as she made her back to Hadley's workshop. That evening, under a sky pinpricked with timid stars, Hadley fetched the workshop's brass lantern and led Amelia and Julian through a narrow corridor into the clock tower's base. The interior smelled of old gears and fresh lime wash. A spiral staircase snaked upward into darkness. Hadley lit the lantern. Its glow revealed cogs the size of wagon wheels and pendulums swinging in ghostly arcs of silver. Ancient runic inscriptions, chipped and worn, ringed the walls. Hourglass, spiral, teardrop, and others Amelia had not yet seen outside her rune set. Hadley held a small key. The lower gear, closest to the chamber door, houses the spiral rune. It appears to be the master rune, binding the missing minutes. If we replace it, perhaps time will flow true again. Amelia's throat tightened. "Replace it with one of ours." Hadley shook his head. "No, we cannot remove it. We must repair its fractured teeth. See how a section is broken, worn nearly to smoothness?" Amelia knelt, brushing grime from the gear's broken crest. She fitted a matching rune, her spiral brass bauble, into the fractured slot. The metal clicked softly, as though greeting a long-lost companion. She rotated the gear by hand. The rune held firm. Suddenly, Julian gasped. A gentle hum grew into a resonant pulse. Gears above him shifted, shedding the weight of centuries. The pendulum halted its arc. Then, ever so gradually, it resumed, each swing a perfect mirror of its predecessor. Hadley peered over Amelia's shoulder as the lantern's flame steadied. "Did you feel it?" Amelia nodded, breathless. "Time feels smoother." Upstairs, the tower's great hands remained frozen at 12, but Hadley gestured. "Wait." Climbing to the highest chamber, they found a small lever marked by a teardrop rune. Hadley pulled it. A thunderous groan echoed as the main gear engaged. Amelia felt the lantern's warmth surge through the shaft. With a metallic roar, the clock's hands jerked backward, past 12, turned to 11, then gliding forward to 12 again. The tower's four faces chimed once, twice, then resumed their quarter-hour chorus. Amelia closed her eyes as each gong told the present moment. A full 16 rings of resolution, as if the bells themselves celebrated restored order. Julian laughed softly. The village reborn in time itself. Hadley placed a hand on Amelia's shoulder. You did this. You understood the runes. Amelia's cheeks warmed. I only followed your guidance. The lantern's glow pulsed along the stone wall, illuminating runes that had been dormant. Readers of old would have called them sigils of restoration, their careful placement renewing the flow of minutes. The very air felt lighter, as though breathed anew. Later, back in the workshop, Amelia carefully returned the spiral rune to its felt mat and recorded the night's events in a small journal. She placed the rune between the hourglass and the teardrop, forming a bridge of brass truth. She could hardly believe the rune's power, binding fractured time across centuries. She glanced at her own wristwatch. It read precisely 12:01, exactly matching the workshop clock's dial. Panic dissolved into relief. Every minute till then was found again, reclaimed by the clockmaker's secret. Exhausted yet exhilarated, Amelia sat before the workbench. The first light of dawn sifted through the window pane, brushing the runes in silvery glow. She closed her eyes and allowed herself a smile. Pendlebury's time had stopped, and at midnight, she had started it anew. The morning after Clocktower rang true once more, Pendlebury stirred with unfamiliar ease. Villagers emerged from doors they'd hesitated to cross, stepping onto streets freshly ordered in time. Amelia Birch, however, felt no rest in the day's golden light. The runes had healed the broken gear, yet questions remained. Who had carved the cipher and why? How had Alistair Crow's sacrifice bound the flow of minutes? She must know the full story. Master Hadley watched her closely as she polished a repaired pocket watch's case. You have done the village a great service, Amelia, he said. But true mastery requires understanding the origin of our tools. There is more to know about Alistair Crow, and his journal may hold the missing pages. Amelia's eyes brightened. Hadley led her through a hidden door behind the workshop's grand clock. A narrow staircase spiraled downward, its walls lined with drawers and cabinets. At the base lay a small vault set into the stone, its door carved with a single spiral rune. This, Hadley explained, producing a brass key, is my private archive. Crow's journal rests here, sealed for a keeper's eyes only. Amelia watched as Hadley unlocked the vault. Inside, on a velvet cushion, lay a leather-bound book whose cover bore a tarnished clasp and the initials AC in flowing script. She lifted it with reverence and set it on a reading table beneath a single lamplight. Hadley poured 2 cups of tea, strong, fragrant brew, and handed Amelia one. She sipped, the warmth sharpening her senses. Then she opened the journal to its first page. I, Alistair Crow, apprentice to Master Fieldsworth, bequeath this record to any who dare bind time's heart. May my folly teach caution. The handwriting flowed in ink the color of old bronze. Crow's neat script chronicled his early days under Fieldsworth's tutelage, learning to synchronize pendulums and adjust escapements. He described the thrill of crafting the village clock's master key, a device that could pause or hasten time and control bursts, a safeguard against calamity. Amelia read aloud. When the plague swept our region in winter's cruel breath, travelers died in doorways. I whispered to Master Fieldsworth, if only we could borrow moments from tomorrow, we might mend wounds before they fester. He frowned but did not forbid my experiments. Hadley set down his teacup, the potion for time's quickening. He nearly lost his mind chasing lost seconds. Amelia turned the page. I bound a fragment of my own lifespan to the clock's wheel. Each tick consumed a heartbeat, granting village minutes beyond the sundial's reach. I saved lives, yes, but the river of time grows thin when channeled so. At last, I fractured its flow. Missing minutes slipped into twilight, and the clock faltered. Her throat tightened. He trapped himself, then? Hadley nodded. He sacrificed his days so the village might live, but the imbalance meant time itself sought equilibrium, thus the skips and stalls. Amelia continued. I endeavored to restore the balance. On the eve of the full moon's trine, I climbed the tower with lantern in hand. I intended to release my bond and reset the flow. Yet the mechanism, alive with my own essence, refused to let go. I watched the lantern's flame die into gears, then felt my years spill away like sand. The page was smeared with ink and water, as though Crow's final tears had blurred his words. Later entries became spidery scrawl. Complete the cycle or be lost time. Amelia's pulse thrummed. The warning echoed in her mind. She closed the journal gently. His fate, she said softly, was to vanish into clock itself unless someone finishes work. Hadley's gaze darkened. You must not repeat his error. He bound his life to machinery. He forgot that tools are meant to serve, not consume. We repaired the gear, but the mechanism remains incomplete, its heart unfreed. Amelia set the journal aside. Then the missing runes, they were his stopgaps, fragments of his key. He carved them from brass, placing them in the mechanism to hold time together. We must reunite them, restore his pocket watch to its rightful place. Hadley nodded and returned the mechanism to mortal hands. That afternoon, Amelia and Julian Trent cataloged every rune in Hadley's workshop. They matched each to pages in Crow's journal, discovering that Crow had sketched 24 runes, one for each missing minute in Pendlebury's cycle. The spiral, the teardrop, the hourglass, the wave, each held by the town in secret safekeeping. They reclaimed the spiral. Now they needed the others, the hourglass, the crescent moon, and a dozen more cryptic sigils. Night fell. The trio ascended the tower at the strike of 10, carrying leather pouches for runes and oil lanterns. The clock's great gears loomed overhead, silent in their midday pause. Amelia held Crow's journal open by lamplight, reading instructions. At the central cavity, once accessed only by Crow, stood a massive brass hub, its face ringed with 24 shallow recesses, like a celestial panel. It waited to accept each rune. Amelia set the spiral in place, recalling how it had reunited the missing minutes. Now she retrieved the hourglass rune from her pouch, its glass etching perfect, and eased it into the next slot. The gear hummed in greeting. One by one, under Amelia's steady hand, they installed the runes. The teardrop, the willow, the lantern, a dovetail piece Crow had carved for lost travelers. The wave rune, the crescent moon, and the patterns of stars, reeds, and threads. The mechanism shuddered, as if breathing life. With the 23rd rune in place, a small symbol of a pendulum, the chamber rumbled softly. The great clock hands shivered on their shafts. Julian gasped, breath caught. Amelia felt the air's texture shift. Only one rune remained. Crow's own symbol, a crudely sketched self-portrait carved in miniature on brass, showing his profile beside a broken heart. The journal warned, to complete the cycle, sacrifice that which you hold most dear. Amelia's heart thundered. She stared at the final recess. Master, she whispered, I'm afraid. That rune, it holds Crow's essence. Hadley placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Then its placement will free him and bind you only to your mortal time, not the clock's endless loop. His sacrifice was to tether the mechanism. Yours will be to release it. Trembling, Amelia nodded. She retrieved the rune, a tiny brass disc etched with Crow's profile, and held in her palm. The lantern's glow reflected in its grooves. She closed her eyes, breathing deeply, and pressed the rune into the last slot. A thunderous clang echoed through the tower as the runes locked into place. The gear spun once, twice, then reversed, its teeth clearing centuries of built-up strain. Above them, the great clock hand spun backward in a dizzying blur, pausing at 12 before sweeping forward in perfect rhythm. The mechanism's roar faded into a steady tick-tock, tick-tock. Amelia opened her eyes. The lantern's light steadied. Julian exhaled, relief flooding his face. Hadley murmured, he's free. Amelia clutched Crow's journal to her chest. Though exhaustion tugged at her limbs, her spirit soared. She had restored time's flow and honored the clockmaker's secret. As they descended into Pendlebury's silent streets, dawn's first pale light unveiled a world reset. The sky glowed with promise, birds sang with newfound fervor, and windows glimmered with anticipation of a day perfectly measured. Yet in Amelia's heart lay the weight of sacrifice and the power of a secret bound in brass and ink. She had become not only a keeper of time, but also its liberator. And the village would never forget the clockmaker's final gift. That evening, A tremor of fear stirred through Pendlebury. As twilight gathered, the village clock chimed in perfect sequence, an almost triumphant cadence that drew villagers from hearth and home to gather in the square. Lanterns glowed on the clock tower's face, casting soft circles of light on cobblestones that no longer skipped or stuttered. But as the ringing faded, a sudden hush fell. The final villagers, who had lingered beneath the tower's chime, felt a ripple in the air, a shift so subtle that many mistook it for a gust of wind. Then, without warning, the great clock's hour hand jerked forward 3 places in an instant, its movement too swift for the eye to follow. The minute hand froze at 9:45, and the tower's 4 faces glowed eerily in the half-light. Gasps and startled cries rose as time fractured again. A child chasing her ball found it vanished. The ball reappeared a moment later against a distant wall. Lovers walking arm in arm felt their steps derail, bending the arc of their path by seconds they could not account for. At the workshop, the lantern that Amelia had polished now cast quivering shadows, as if unsettled by unseen tremors. Within moments, a piercing alarm sounded, a scream from the market square. Villagers rushed back, where they saw Mr. Hobson, the baker, clutching at his wristwatch. The face read 9:17, though the clock had struck 15 minutes ago. His flower-white hair was damp with panic. "Time, it's slipping," he gasped. My wife did not return from the mill. She crossed the bridge at 9, yet her shoe prints only fade at 9:30. The villagers exchanged fearful looks. Pendlebury's missing minutes had returned, gone, but now a beloved woman was lost within them. Mr. Hobson's wife, Maris, was a kind soul who sold cookies near the waterfront. If the gap had swallowed her, only Amelia could set things right. Master Hadley and Julian appeared at Amelia's side. "It's happening again," Hadley murmured. "We must act quickly. Time is tearing itself apart." Amelia nodded, determination sharpening her features. She sprang into motion, gathering the repair tools. Her satchel with Crow's journal, oil lamps, and a small pouch containing any spare runes they had not used. Outside, the villagers formed a ring of lanterns around the tower, their light offering Amelia a path as she dashed toward the clock tower door. The 3 ascended the spiral staircase in silence, the distant cries of villagers fading to muffled echoes. In the mechanism chamber, the giant gear glowed faintly, pulsing every 3 seconds like a heartbeat gone awry. The suspended runes shone with an inner light that flickered between steady and chaotic, as though some had lost their hold. Hadley pulled a lever that slowed the pendulum's arc. "I'm stabilizing its swing," he panted. "But we need the central vault, where the original pocket watch must be returned. That's the key to sealing the fracture." Amelia's eyes darted to the far wall, where a hidden panel bore Crow's initials. She pried it open, revealing a narrow compartment. Inside lay an empty leather pouch, the one that once held Alistair's personal pocket watch. The pouch was lined with crimson velvet, its clasp open and waiting. "I need that watch," Amelia said, "to complete the cycle and restore Maris and all who slip within these minutes." Hadley nodded. "Hurry!" Amelia reached in and drew the watch from her coat pocket, the one she had removed the runes from. Though its glass was whole again, its face was unmarked by numerals. Instead, Alcister's initials shone at its center, and the runic symbols glinted around the rim. She lifted it with care and pressed it into the pouch. Immediately, a resonant hum swept through the vault. Julian steadied a lamp to illuminate the gear. Together, they watched as the runes glowed steadied, pulsing in unison as though acknowledging a missing piece returned. The pendulum's swing harmonized at last, its arc widening to its correct length. But then a new tremor struck. The gear's teeth ground with a harsh rasp. A spectral figure materialized above the main arbor, a slender man in a tattered coat, his face gaunt, eyes vacant yet pleading. Alistair Crow's ghost stood before them, lantern in hand, his form half solid as though carved from smoke. Around him swirled fragments of clock hands and broken memories. Alistair's voice echoed in the chamber like a distant chime. "You have brought it at last. But time is angry. It ripped me free and now demands a price." Amelia lifted her chin, voice steady. "Your sacrifice saved Pendlebury, Master Crow. We honor it. I only wish to set time right, and bring back those lost to its fray. Alistair's ethereal hand rose, flicking ash from his sleeve. By binding your own seconds to mechanism, you risk the same fate. Hadley held Amelia's arm. She won't. She knows the stakes. He pointed to the watch in the pouch. You were bound by regret. We offer you release. If you let go. Alistair's hollow eyes glistened. Then free me. His voice cracked like a dried gear. He took a step forward, boots echoing against iron plates. Gears around him shuddered. Droplets of oil seemed to leap from the machine, suspended in midair. Amelia stepped toward him, lantern light flickering across her determined face. Please, she whispered, let me help. She opened the pouch and held the watch out. Your watch, return to its place. Complete the cycle. Alistair's hand reached for it, passing through the pouch's lip as if through water. When his fingers closed around the watch, the mechanism chamber trembled violently. Julian staggered, nearly dropping his lamp. Grease spat from the gears above them. Time quivered, each second stretching into eternity before snapping back. Master Hadley shouted above the roar. Clear the chamber. Amelia, you must turn the central spindle to reset the wheel. Amelia drew a deep breath and pressed both palms against the central spindle, a large brass rod whose grooves mirrored the watch's filigree. With effort, she turned it clockwise, coaxing the mechanism to wind itself back into harmony. Alistair's figure stuttered between solid and transparent, his ghostly form flickering like an unsteady reflection. He raised the watch to the gears as Amelia cranked. A blinding flash of silver light filled the chamber, and all sound ceased for the barest instant. Then gears spun in perfect synchrony, teeth meshing precisely, pendulums ringing clear as chimes. A resonant gong echoed, the deep sound of 12 clocks striking in unison. The ground shuddered one last time, then settled. Amelia's hands trembled as she released the spindle. She fell back against the wall, lantern clattered to the floor, but its flame steady. Julian and Hadley steadied her. Alistair hovered before them, his form no longer gaunt. He appeared at peace, the lines of sorrow softened. He lifted the lantern in a final salute, eyes shining as though filled with long-extinguished candlelight. Thank you, he whispered, voice warm and sonorous. You have given me back my time and returned all stolen moments. His form shimmered, as if the mist of years dissolved in the lantern's glow. He held the lantern high, then melted into a swirl of motes, tiny sparks of light that drifted into the gears, sealing themselves within. A gentle breeze swirled through the chamber, impossible in the stone tower, but no one questioned it. Alistair Crow's presence had vanished, leaving only a lingering warmth and the steady tick-tock of perfected time. Amelia pressed a hand to her heart, chest rising with the realization that no one had been lost. The roar of gears gave way to a calm hum. She looked at her wristwatch. 9:45, and a moment later, 9:46, the seconds flowing smoothly once again. Hadley exhaled, voice unsteady. He's gone, at last. Julian lifted the lantern, its flame steady as ever. Time is right. Amelia closed her eyes, tears sliding down her cheeks. She had faced a fracture of time itself and prevailed. The clockmaker's secret was no longer a tool of sacrifice, but a legacy of balance, restored by a new generation of keepers. They descended the spiral stairs into Pendlebury's silent streets. The villagers watched from doorways as the tower chimed midnight in perfect rhythm. Each strike brought relief, tears, and cautious smiles. And somewhere in that perfect bell chorus, Amelia thought she heard its first light crept over Pendlebury as Amelia Birch emerged from the clock tower, her boots echoing softly on dew-kissed cobbles. The village square lay hushed beneath the rosy sky, lanterns still aglow in every window and doorway. Villagers peered from shuttered homes, their faces lined with cautious hope. From a mill at the riverbank came a shout. Maris! A woman stumbled down the path, her skirt's damp hair tangled, yet her eyes were bright with recognition. Mr. Hobson, trembling with relief, dropped his sack of flour and wrapped his arms around his wife. I'm here, Maris whispered, voice quavering. You called, and I woke by the water. Time felt strange, like waking from a dream. Hobson pressed tears to his cheeks. Thank you, Amelia. for bringing her back. Amelia stepped forward, heart swelling. The clock is mended, Mr. Hobson. Time flows true again. She let her gaze drift to the tower's great face, now marking 6 minutes past dawn in perfect rhythm. Clusters of villagers spilled into the square. Bakers, millers, seamstresses, children clutching dolls and books. Travelers who had paused here for shelter. Each greeted the first chime of daylight with awe, as though hearing sound for the first time. Wherever eyes met Amelia's, they shone with gratitude. From the crowd emerged Master Hadley and Julian Trent. Hadley's coat bore a smear of oil and a streak of sweat, testament to the previous night's labor. He offered Amelia a proud smile. "You have saved us all," he announced, voice rich with emotion. "Pendlebury owes you its time and its thanks." Julian stepped beside Hadley. "It was your courage, Amelia, your understanding of the runes, and your heart that guided us." He bowed in mock formality. Long live the new clockmaker's apprentice. Laughter rippled through the square. Amelia blushed beneath the sun's gentle warmth. She placed a hand on Hadley's arm. "Not just an apprentice, Master. If you allow, I would serve as Pendlebury's timekeeper, with Julian as my partner." Hadley studied her with eyes bright and approving. "A most fitting title. I pass to you the stewardship of time itself. May you guard it wisely." A cheer rose, carried on the breeze like triumphant church bells. Children skipped forward to touch Amelia's sleeves, whispering questions. "Will the clock ever stop again? Does time belong to you now?" She knelt, smiling, and answered each in turn, though her heart still thrummed with wonder. Later that afternoon, Amelia stood in the sunlight, filtering through Hadley's private archive. She held Alistair Crow's pocket watch, the one she had sealed in the mechanism. Its silver face gleamed in her palm. She fitted the watch into a shallow wooden box, lined with crimson velvet, and sealed with a clasp shaped like an hourglass rune. Beside it she placed a leather-bound journal she and Julian had begun, its pages waiting for new keepers' entries. With care, she locked the archive's vault door behind her and placed Hadley's insignia key on its hook, a symbol that future apprentices would learn to respect. In the workshop's main room, she arranged her satchel on a peg. Inside, the set of runes she had helped install, each labeled and cataloged. That evening, as the sky deepened indigo, villagers gathered in the square beneath the tower's gentle glow. A lantern lit by Amelia's hand hung on a newly carved bracket on the workshop wall, its flame steady and warm. A small band of musicians played a soft tune, weaving notes like threads through the chill autumn air. Children danced in circles. Elders nodded in time, lulled by the music and the comfort of regular minutes. Amelia climbed the stone steps to the workshop's door and called out in her clear voice, "Pendlebury, time is yours." She paused as her words echoed over the rooftops. "Use it kindly, remember its value, and tend it with gentle hearts." A cheer answered her, carried on the lantern-lit breeze. She closed the door, the lamp at her back like a watchful eye. Inside, she sat at Hadley's old workbench, quill in hand, and opened the journal's first blank page. "By lantern light," she wrote, "to the steward who follows, welcome." Within these pages lies a chronicle of time's guardians, from Fieldsworth to Crow to Birch, and now to you. May your pen capture moments of joy and sorrow alike, and may your heart remain steady as the clock's own heartbeat. Guard these words as you guard the minutes, and know that every entry you add ensures time's legacy endures. Amelia Birch, timekeeper of Pendlebury. She dipped the quill one last time and added a delicate flourish beneath her signature, an hourglass entwined a spiral rune. Then she closed the journal and placed it upon a shelf, alongside Crow's original manuscript and Hadley's tools of the trade. The workshop grew quiet. Clocks ticked in harmonious alignment, their voices soft as rain. Outside, wind chimes danced in the starry night, each note a gentle reminder of time's precious flow. Amelia bent back her chair, hands folded, and exhaled a breath she did not realize she had held. Her path had led from apprentice to liberator, from student to steward. Tomorrow, she would greet the village at dawn's first bell. She would guide travelers, mend broken watches, and teach Julian the deeper secrets of the runes. But tonight, she savored the stillness of resolved uncertainty, the warmth of tasks well done. That's the end of tonight's tale. I hope it gave you a little chill and a lot of calm. With any luck, you're already sound asleep. Didn't even hear the ending, did you? But if you're still awake, well, how about another? Sleep well, dream better, and I'll see you next time.